goal today, okay? Your goal today is to look at all your primary and your secondary sources from all of last week that we've gone through, that we have read and you have annotated. Your goal today is to look for relevant evidence, right, Nick? Make sure you look at me. Look for relevant evidence to support your claim. Is the government ever justified? Using the evidence from the text, think about which piece of evidence supports your claim and then use this graphic organizer as a summary page. Okay? So I need everyone to look at me. You have three sources. You have your ancient times, looking at Shihandi. You have your censorship and the one-child policy. Okay? Go back to the text. The easiest thing for you to do is look right at Shihandi. Look at, is the government justified when he burned books? Was he justified in building the Great Wall? And then look at the evidence to support your claim. When you do this, don't just look for evidence. What does the evidence really mean? And how does it support your claim? Talk about it. You have to make inferences. Some of you started making those inferences last week. Think about what evidence will help you argue and support your claim, as well as how will the counter argument be posed? What will they say to argue against you? And how will you reply using the evidence from your text? So there's a lot to discuss today. In your groups, you will have an academic conversation, okay? Keeping in mind your academic conversations rubric. The laminated piece is on your desk. Remember to justify, remember to elaborate, support your ideas from examples, as well as build on each other, paraphrasing, and active listening and eye contact. Okay? You need all of those speaking and listening skills as you have your conversations. But before you begin your conversations, I want you to show you a video. Okay? It's a really short video. We are going to keep the lights on, and I want you to listen. Now, it's a little difficult to listen, so I will be talking over her to just go over some of the evidence. Now, as you watch this video, okay, in your graphic organizer, right where it says the one-child policy, the one you used last week, so if you turn to that page now, this one, it's the last page in your packet. Yeah. All right, as you watch this video or listen to it, I want you to think about the evidence she's giving you to support your claim. So, did she tell you things about the government being justified about the one-child policy? Or is she helping you understand what it is? Now, she gives you two perspectives. She's a woman that lives in Beijing, China. She is, I only gave her first name to be confidential for her own safety issues, and the government does censor things, and you learned about that, so we had to be careful what information and how it's portrayed to you so she doesn't come off as presenting only negative information. So Ms. Diana, her husband works for the government, and she's going to tell you about the one-child policy. So as you watched, right now, as you watch, look for the evidence that she's giving you in the video to support your claim. So this side of the room, you are what? What is your claim in this side of the room?
The government shouldn't be.
What? Okay, so the government isn't justified to violate people's rights. What's your claim on this side?
Government is justified.
Government is justified. Very good. So remember, as you listen, what evidence is she presenting? Or you might want to write down the opposing view so you can counter that. Okay? All right, there we go. This is an interview done by a couple of your classmates, Ryan and Creston, on the one-child policy.
And mommy, I really love this. The policy doesn't allow me to have more. And also, my husband is working in the government office, so he will lose his job.
So her husband works for the government office, even though they can afford to pay the fee.
$40,000 a year.
One time.
So $40,000 a year, they can afford it, but she cannot because her husband works for the government.
And the first one is a good thing. If I only have one child, because the current situation is I only have one boy. And the good thing is I have more time and more focus on one child in education.
More time, more focus, having one child, so positive.
Better education, better school. And actually my plan is to send him to the international school and they will get him to the university in America.
So far what she said is that positive of having one child is you get to spend more time. So, you love your child, you spoil them, have fun with them, and her goal is to send her son to an international school. Okay?
Let's say in the future. Yeah, so this is one of the good things. The second good thing is I have more money to bring him travel around the world. And actually, most of the children in big cities in China travel a lot in different countries, which can broaden what they see and enrich their knowledge.
Because you have one child, you have more money to spend on that one child. Okay?
So this is one of the good things. Another good thing is we have more time to build relationships. So we have closer relationship to become very good friends.
Good relationship with your
Can
child.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And the negative thing is
The negative.
but too much time and too much focus on one child. So the child feels too pressured, not really relaxed.
So your first child becomes too spoiled and feels that they're always having too much attention. Now, she continues to talk about, and I edited the video because we couldn't show 45 minutes. She continues to talk about how having the one child, in the negative aspect, the child feels like they are constantly being watched, they have too much attention, and they just want to be left alone sometimes. But the parents, and she'll continue to talk about it, are nervous to let go of their child because they also don't want something to happen. And listen to what else she says.
And the second one is too much care and too love from parents, the grandparents. So they are a little bit spoiled. Not really like to share personal stuff with other people, a little bit selfish. So this is one of the negative things. And another negative thing is actually in China, more than 20 million parents lost their only child due to disease or accident. So they are too old to have 4 kids.
So she just made a statement. What did she just say? Ryan?
That 20 million parents have lost their one child and they can't have another one, so they have no one to take care of them.
Very good. You made the inference that they have no one to take care of them. They don't. They feel lonely, they have no one to take care of them, and that's why they feel they should be allowed to have more than one child. Now, the government has their own perspective, right? You have two perspectives. You have the government and you have the people. So now what you're going to do is in your groups, using the evidence from the video, using the evidence from the article on Big Brother, Xinhuangdi, as well as the big one-child policy packet that you have, talk about it with your group. Have your academic conversations. Is the government ever justified to violate people's rights? And remember to support your claim. And think about what the opposing view side is going to say and how you will counter it. All right? I will come around and help you. Go ahead, get started.
So, with the one-child policy, for the history paragraph or whatever I have to write, so I looked up at the on the CIA World Fact Book that it's 1.3 billion, and so obviously the population has gone up. So if they were to remove one-child
How do
policy,
you know that they have a high population? What evidence do you have to support that?
explosions.
So, I also think that it's good to have governments be justified because it's not just for the good of one person, it's for the good of the nation, so that it's also
So why would having a high population be a bad
because
thing?
the government should be able to mess around with your rights. It's because
So why is too many people a bad negative
there's going to be
aspect to
another
that?
president or another ruler soon, so they'll change the rights and maybe change
So
the laws.
now see what you're doing. You're
It's
saying that the
the same.
population is too high, Now you just broke it down and said, why is it too high? What are the negative impacts of the high population? And what did you just say? What did you say? Okay, so limited space to live, right? Very good. What other evidence do you have? In market, so it gets crowded.
The government doesn't have that much money.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, like here, we can't buy more land.
Okay, so land is an issue. We know that
So
because
what do
they
you
no
have
place
for
to
your
live.
evidence?
What else?
Your evidence for everything.
Okay, show us.
Oh, but I thought that what was his name? Kwan Shai. I thought this leader was.
Okay, so now what you need to do is start to really look at the text to help build on that claim you just made that the population is an issue. Where in the text do you have evidence to really back up that claim and say, here's a piece of evidence according to this article, having high population leads to this. If you don't have it, find your technology to look up something to show here's the first leader, but you need evidence to support it. And where is it coming from? Okay? Talk about that.
He was a new leader. China's massive palace. He also helped build the China.
So what were you
Great Wall of
talking
China,
about?
which also helped people from invaders.
So you are on the side
you know,
of
he was a great leader, it's just that
correct?
he
The
could have
government
ruled
is justified.
better
So here's why you want the government justified.
We put more time and focus
So,
because rather than having multiple kids and you have to like
There we
you're going to
go.
work,
That's what I need. Because with the CIA World Factbook, since 1976,
clothes and food
with the one-child policy,
people,
According
or
to who?
since 1978, with the one-child policy, they had 940 million people.
in the video
And
it
then
says
it went up to
So I would just say you
1.3
go back to that,
billion
'cause
even
that's what you
with
have
the
to say it. 'Cause
policy.
You can't say
It's
just
just
your
because
opinion, because then it
that
doesn't become valid. So
population
say
will
according to
double,
Miss
even
Diana,
though-
and that's an evidence piece you could
Because
use, okay?
if
So
you
that
have
would make
one
sense.
kid,
Okay, what
the
else in the
population
text do you
grows
have from your
with
packet
one
that
kid
backs up your opinion?
every
And now remember, as you look at building your argument, ethos depends on local.
One kid every second.
Ethical appeal you're going to justify to the other side,
that-
emotional or
in a day, I'm
logical.
not doing
And what did we talk about last week? Where would your argument really
So
be?
it would be
Logical, very good. So go ahead and now
it just
remember,
said
you convince the audience to logic or reasoning. So what piece of evidence are going to help you persuade the other side, okay?
So, yes, I start.
Guys, how's it going? Good.
Good.
Yeah, what do we have so far?
that it had explosive population growth because it's policy, and because it's either a child every second or two child, you know.
So what is the negative aspect of having a large population?
Well, it says right here, flooding,
I like how you
famine.
referred to that. So it would be flooding and famine would be able to feed its people. Okay, what
Because
else?
it also has poverty, you know, and
And at research at home, since I have to do that little history paragraph thingy, so on the CIA World Factbook, it said that the population now is 1.3 billion. So so even with the policy, it's still growing a lot.
And you're saying that it's a bad thing because, according to here, it says that it leads to what?
well, it's either because it's a good thing, because if they didn't have as many kids as they want, it's because they would have more famine, there'd be more people dying.
So they needed to control the population.
Yeah, because I mean it's still growing by a lot even with it.
Okay, so no chances of it are leaving. All right, so that's with the one-child policy. Now remember, they're going to throw at you is Shihongi, burning books, the Big Brother policy of censorship, right? Confucius, the Great Wall. All of these are things that they're going to do. What evidence do you have to justify that those were all logical actions taken by the government? Remember, your appeal goes into which one? Ethical, emotional, or logical?
Logical. Yeah.
And what else?
Ethical.
Ethical. Okay, you could do that. Well, ethical, Shi Hongdi did murder thousands of people. Is that ethical?
In front of other people.
So is that ethical, Ryan? That's something to think about, okay?
Well, he didn't know that China was going to get exposed to population growth.
Remember as before when I said
if
that
those people were still living, generations would pass down.
what's his name again? I forget. Well, he kind of made China as like a dictatorship, so I think he should give them a little bit more freedom.
For what I have, is thousands died working on its building programs. The new emperor taxed the people heavily, and people could be buried or burnt alive, branded, or have their head cut off. And then for a brilliant leader to accomplish a lot, making significant progress on
Think
building
about it, it's their
wall,
country.
and
They have to
defeating the last of the
know things about their country. It's like us. It's like
accomplished a lot.
yeah. Well, you always have to
enemies.
dramatic and it's just in our country we had like 70 people knew about that, but there I don't know if everyone would find out.
Well, let me ask you a question. You're on the side that the government is never justified in violating people's rights. So you have to find the evidence, and I like how you're starting to think about the opposing view. But Shihongi was in ancient times, before technology, right? So how can you tell them that it was not justified in building the Great Wall when thousands of people died? So your focus is on which one of these appeals. When you use the elements of argumentation, which appeal are you going to try to get inside? You know what which one's it going to be? Ethical, emotional, or logical?
Probably logical or
Logic would be, think about it, it means to convince the audience using reasons, meaning, well, you're the side that's saying killing is always wrong. You're on the side that's saying you're going to be emotional. Remember when we talked about the jury and the jury little child hitting her? Right? And how the father and the mother, you would want people in your jury to be parents because they would support and feel your pain.
Yeah, but right here, I don't know if we should do logic.
What if the countries wouldn't allow that?
Talk about it with your group, right?
Because I think we should do. I have two
countries.
suggestions for this because I think we should do it because
receiving child,
it says
their
it
population
means to prevent persuade and honor. Yeah, but then right here, I think we should do this strategy.
Ethical? Well, ethical would be that killing is wrong no matter what the reason, and that's what your claim is. But now you need to look back in the text, find the evidence that you find is relevant to support it. You have some really good ones.
But right here, can we still support
here.
We can not support the other side. Can we agree with something? But I meant Great Wall China. I did save millions of people. Actually, we can't go against that because it did save millions.
So somewhere around here,
today it still saved.
Okay.
the thing started, and yet
I
it's
agree.
still.
That's a great idea. But now, what will you say to counter that it wasn't justified? Okay.
So
Talk to your group.
I
And that's only up to 2,000. That's not up to 2014 where we are, which is at 1.3 billion.
It's like right there, they put the policy in place and then they take off to 1 and 2 times a million.
Okay, so
you're
for pros and cons in the one-child policy on the back of this, I got for pros, helps a little with the population, and even with it, the population is still going up. Then bad things is that according to the graph, policy is not working that well. A lot of ways around it, so I mean, it's not very good if they're not enforcing it a lot.
It's gonna
Unfair for the rich, so it's unfair for a lot of people.
So are you talking about the one-child policy
Kids can't get
currently?
education or any other public
What's your claim?
I understand why he
Do you think the government is justified in violating or isn't?
What do you
The
have?
government is not justified. Okay, so what evidence do you have from the text to support your claim that they're not justified? Or from the video, which is part of the discussion?
Well, in the video I found it at education will be
20 million people,
but
like 20 million parents
they
lost
lost
a
a
child
job
because
and
anybody,
the
like an
teachers won't be
accident, and they want
high
another
paid
child
because
to
they
go
want
into
to
alcohol
and this is
abuse.
living in for education because they have to pay
And well,
taxes for
the
education.
woman had said that if they do lose their child, they're a lot older. Sometimes when they're really old as a woman, it becomes more difficult to have a child. So if these people are older, then they can't. If you lose a child and you're not old, then most of them will be allowed. But if you're older, you cannot.
Not the teacher lose their
But
job.
that's a
The
good piece
teachers
of
will
evidence
quit
you
because
could
they're not
use
making
for
a lot
your
of
side
money.
that, these parents are left alone, right? So what other evidence do you have from the text? Now, don't only look at this one, you also have all the other articles. What other evidence do you have from each article to support your claim, and put them all in the summary page, put them
What do
here,
you
okay?
have with this?
So what are the negative sides from that book?
So which one what are you talking about right now?
We're talking about the one child policy.
And what evidence do you have to support your claim?
And one of the counter arguments they're gonna make
That there is
is
districts
that
that were affected by the one child policy, but in a bad way, because the parents wanted to have two children. It's not like this is conception. You have millions of people living in your state and let your kid run out on your own and then be taken away. Would you take care of them when they grow up?
Who could take care of who? Parents, okay. And according to who, where'd you get that information?
So one thing on our side is that, well, they are justified because in Egypt, right here, it was social media was key in the uprising in Egypt.
Make sure
So
that
that's the
that's
reason why they're
saying that in the
justified
video
because
clearly
they
said,
don't
right?
have the
So, okay,
censorship.
so far you
People
can
be
see
like,
that this is support for the one child policy, and then you'll continue to go for more. Well, how about the other articles from the reading about Shihongi? Why was Shihongi not justified in building the Great Wall?
Or you should put wall building.
Oh, the Great Wall. According to what?
Oh wait, it says the Great Wall there. Oh wait, then we don't need to put it. Here, Peter wants to do this. Well, do you need a price because we need to actually just keep it? So, well, learning the books. He read all the books that had the information about.
So did you get from the kill this people and you're going to put that down?
This
Then you know what they're going to say. They're going to say this.
in the video. Yeah, they don't like any of that history. Censors internet words to be. Wait, no, that doesn't sound
That's all I got.
And but their counter argument may be that
Very good. It's invaders were coming.
Well,
So now you know they're going to say that. How can you counter that argument?
never mind.
And then you also have the
Actually, that works to our advantage.
Oh,
Yes, it's all
Doesn't know what
All right, I'm gonna stop you just for a quick second. 1 second, get everybody to look at me, please. All right, as I went around to every group, I'm starting to see that you do have relevant evidence. A lot of you are looking at the one-child policy and looking for relevant evidence. However, you want to look through the other texts as well. You have Shi Hongdi. He burnt books. He killed innocent people. The government, you feel that it is justified. Why? You feel it's never justified. Well, what argument are you going to make? Also look at the censorship article. I did hear Vivian and Victoria talking about the censorship and how it wasn't justified. Well, what evidence do you have from the text to support that? Okay? So have that discussion, and then I will come back. I'm going to go around to group. If you need help, let me know, okay? Okay, go on.
Would you want this? Would you? Well,
So we're going to do the debate right after
think
this.
about it, and then they're
So what I want you to do is try this graphic organizer.
One
You should
and
now print
a
out
counter
those
argument they may
facts
say about the
to counter,
turning of
okay?
books will be
John, do you
like,
have something to work with?
no, if they get all the information, they might want to uprise.
then they'll be like, if you kill innocent people, they're gonna want to uprise.
Do you guys have anything extra to write with?
What?
Pencil? Extra pencil?
An extra.
You're asking me for a pencil?
Okay.
Do you have
So
anything?
they might say, well, if you kill all those innocent people, they might get angry and try and uprise anyways. But, so we need a counter-argument to that counter-argument. I thought of one. It's not the best.
Well, you know what? The United States
Colombia is awesome.
positive. You know what? Our government, it can be justified too, because if you don't remember, back in the 40s, they took the Japanese Americans and put them in concentration camps. Also, they also listened to it's also like the big brother policy in China, where they use because they track our phones. They track how we make phone calls, or if there are any keywords that are suspicious, they listen to any phone calls. That's why the government can't be justified
It's a low number, I know.
circumstance.
All right, so
Okay,
now
but-
you're going to go back and pull it
No,
up.
but the counter argument for that, they're gonna uprise so they get all that information.
Why would they?
Is that
Our source is
where was it? It was actually in here, right? Rebellion. Rebel. Alright. Oh yes, anyone who uses his history to criticize the present, they might see it and be like, what? We're doing all these things wrong right now. And so then they'll say like, well, if, and then we'll be like, writing books is good because, they can make an uprising. But then they'll be like, if you kill people and burn books, they're going to make an uprising too. But the government puts fear in their hearts
Very
and so
good.
they're
So
not
now think
going to
about it.
uprise.
He's taking everybody that opposes him.
You have to, they give the people no
An
hope.
excluded area. Just like very
Watch people how would you use that? It says it in the text.
When you publicly execute someone, it puts fear into their hearts.
What happened?
We're talking about death and fear.
They're probably going to say
The
that.
government wants to uprise. That the government needs to strike fear. So if they
Wait,
put
so
fear
if
in
the people were to uprise?
yeah, if the
Okay.
people were to uprise, the government needs to be strict. Because if they're hiding things, they need to be strict. Because it's
What
in the
evidence do you have from
Well,
the text
we
to
were
support that?
talking.
Where is it?
We were talking about how they burned the books and they killed people to
Publicly
stop an
execute
uprising from
people.
happening. But then we were saying how their counter argument may be, well, if you're keeping the information away and you're killing innocent people, they may want to uprise anyways. And then we're like, well, when you publicly execute people, it strikes fear into their hearts.
Okay, but what evidence do you have to support that uprisings occur when people get too much information?
Okay,
You said-
anyone who uses history to criticize the present, they could use this history records and be like, well, we're doing all these things wrong. The government is bad.
Very good. So one source there that tells you that that's why he did it. What else do you have? There's another piece of evidence that I think you look through. Look in the censorship.
It says something about wait, you said
And the censorship, well, that they pull the plug or whatever on social media because it's a key to the uprising in Egypt.
Oh, very good. Now you would use Egypt as your piece of evidence, right? And the uprising that occurred and the turmoil in Egypt. And then you can even talk about turmoil in Egypt and what happened. Because everybody here knows what happened in Egypt. We talked about it. So that would be one piece of evidence it says in the text, and it was social media. That would be a really good one, and that could justify that. And then how would they counter it?
Well,
how could they have social media if it's Egypt?
What do you mean?
Wait, is this ancient Egypt? Because they don't have social media.
Well, no. The first article was ancient. He's talking about the Big Brother article.
Oh.
The censorship article. Because that was another argument they're going to make to you, censorship. You blocked information from
They
confusion.
do have the right to do that.
Why?
Because if you do it, that means that because you know how you said they would, if somebody knows the truth about something, they would start to question society. If they start to question society, that means something. The government has to do something about it, so then they put that policy in place. Therefore, nobody can question the society.
Why is questioning society bad?
well, because questioning leads to groups, and groups lead to big, like, I don't want to say campaigns, but stuff like that, and then that leads to, like, almost the whole population getting angry at the government, and that leads to uprising.
And that leads to
So now,
uprising, and
all
that,
those are great inferences you've made, but back it up by evidence because you're going to need that when you debate.
And
And
then-
then go and just say what you said. They're going to say, well, that doesn't matter. I don't care what Ryan has to say, unless Ryan can back it up by evidence, right?
right. But then that also leads to publicly executing. That means they'll strike fear into their hearts, and that means that they will get scared
A
and they
lot of
won't
the
want to
public
question.
execution, though, were in ancient, so don't mix the two. Because in modern, they're not public execution. Yes, there are penalties, but the laws have changed, and there are more laws now than there were back then. So don't mix those two either. Make sure you clear mind which phase you're in.
Good deal.
So you are this side, right? Yeah. You said even though he killed millions of people while building the Great Wall, he saved more millions. He saved millions more, right? Right. So that's language here. What evidence do you have that he saved a million more? In some brilliant ideas, it doesn't everyone else as a ruler. What other ideas did he embrace, or did he, things he accomplished that support this? Okay. How's it going here?
So they made like the Lincoln Declaration. So you
So I have one thing that I have in the book that I a lot. The new emperor taxed the people heavily. That means like, what does he tax them for?
Maybe they taxed him. Maybe they taxed them for the Great Wall, because the Great Wall was made out of like, was it brick or stone? Well, whatever they made it out of, they needed a lot of it, so it's for the right of the people. Because without the Great Wall, and when I don't know, like the bad people came, then they wouldn't be able to be safe.
Next statement. Listen. So next thing we're going to do, I need everyone to look. Robbie, Slay as well. Great discussions going on. Everyone's starting to get it. What we're going to do in our next part is we're really going to be able to go to the fishbowl debate. Prior to going to our fishbowl debate, I'm going to give you the last 5 more minutes before the class ends for this block, and then moving into the next session, is I want you to look at what evidence are you going to make. Talk to your groups. I'm also going to have you think about how you're presenting it. What are you going to say? What source you have. Okay, so today's goal was that you made a claim on this front page and you should have had relevant evidence highlighted. Please make sure you have that. Some of you haven't written it in here. So please write down what evidence do you have to support your claim on this summary graphic organizer, okay? So do that now because it's missing.